A bizarre passenger plane landed safely, but none of the passengers could be seen coming out. All the passengers inside, they all sat quietly in their seats. They were already dead, but there was no sign of a struggle inside the cabin. What happened in here? Time goes back 2 hours. Out of the blue, the stewardess got a call from her colleague. Let her go to the warehouse to confirm one thing. He told the stewardess, broken warehouse of, there must be some kind of animal, banging against the hatch door. But how is that possible? She opened it doubtfully. There's nothing unusual down here. But then she closed the door and relieved. Without the approval of the tower, a plane suddenly landed. When the station master came to check on the situation, there was no light on the whole plane. This is a little unusual. The NSA and the CDC have also been tipped off. Immediately blocked the airport. The man is in the process of divorce with his wife. He looked very reluctant. He's the head of the CDC. 9 out of 10 days out of the hospital. On the way to the hospital, so he's not at home a lot. The wife feels herself. She was widowed at a young age, so she found a mistress by the way. She just filed for divorce today. The man still wants to win over this woman who is unfaithful to him. Things need to be handled by him. He could only get to the scene first. When he got to the airport, Jim, the head of security, told him, after detection, the plane included the captain. All 210 have no vital signs. Initial suspicion is that some kind of virus has emerged. And an old man in Manhattan watched the news about airplanes on TV. He walked thoughtfully into the chamber. He spoke calmly to a heart. And above the heart, a lot of bugs actually surfaced. Maybe it was the bug that killed his wife. And he seems to be concerned about the plane crash. Have a different idea? The airport here, even Nor change into their suits, ready to see what's going on. Come into the cabin. Indeed found. All the passengers are already cold corpses. On their bodies, there was no sign of a struggle. No blisters or traces of chemical contamination. There's no bruising on his body. That's weird. How exactly did they die? And the air tests have shown that. The air is now full of ammonia. And it can only be seen through an ultraviolet lamp. The interior of the engine room. There were traces of a mysterious liquid. Clothes speculated that it was from some kind of life form. Nora enters the cockpit alone. During the search for the captain's body, the captain who was already dead, he coughed, and there were 4 survivors. The CDC immediately quarantined everyone, and the 4 people in quarantine. Nothing unusual on the surface, but he's been dead for 2 hours. And why did he come back to life? In the middle of downtown Manhattan, the man in the elevator blinked weirdly. He sauntered into the attic. Palmer, president of 10 Star Group, received him. In their conversation, the plane was not empty. They were able to deliver what they wanted. At this moment, colleagues at the Extreme Control Center told Ive, he found something very unusual. This is a coffin found on the plane. On its surface, carved with intricate and mysterious patterns, and the coffin is very heavy. Should have a long history? It takes all hands to open the coffin, but the inside of the coffin was filled with dirt. Even more unexpected, there's a deadbolt on the lid of the coffin. This is a switch that can be turned on inside, but who would open the lid of the coffin inside? And how could airlines allow passengers to check in coffins? This was obviously done by someone in the dark. Station masters got the crew in Berlin, but his brain, suddenly there was a strange murmur. He seems to be under control. Walked alone to the corner of the warehouse. He saw something lying on the ground here. Before he could examine it, on the other side, the handsome man stirred left the Stoneheart group. He went down the street and found a hoodlum, threatening him with his family, going to the airport to make a delivery. You can give him a lot of money afterwards, allowing his family to live prosperously in Manhattan, but on condition that
you will not examine the cargo, you will not make any stops, and you will cross the bridge back into Manhattan before daybreak. Do you understand?
He reports the current situation at a press conference, but he was slapped by an angry man. Faced with family questions, he doesn't know how to explain what happened in the airport, and the medical examiner, Fatty, dissects the body. There was a breakthrough. The blood from these bodies, they're all white, and their internal organs changed, has evolved its own biological circulatory system. Abel with a sword came to the airport. He told Eve if he wanted to stop the spread of the disaster, only those passengers can be directly beheaded, and burn all the bodies, or something out of your control will happen. But Eve, who didn't dare to kill a chicken, hearing something like that. He obviously thinks he's crazy. As the guards were about to take him out, Abel shouted, "Don't let the coffin cross the river." Nora wondered at the old man's words. She turned his head and pulled his clothes to examine them. I didn't think they'd actually find it in the cabin. Unidentified bugs in a pile of dirt. They knew it right away. There must be something unknown in that coffin. Right, when they ran back to the warehouse, the coffin was gone. Surveillance just picked up a shadow and flew away with the coffin. They can't figure it out. How can such a heavy coffin be easily picked up and taken away? Nora suddenly remembered Abel's warning. The coffin must not cross the river. She quickly called the head of security. "Do not let any vehicles leave the airport." Gus carried the coffin to the top of the tower. The policeman asked him to get out of the car for inspection. Just when he wanted to get into a fight, Jim came over. He saw the black card handed over. He immediately reassured the police. And now little Fat, dissecting a body pulled from the airport. All the body organs were intact. Just as he put his heart down to relax, the heart suddenly gave a beating of its own. Curiously, he picked it up and observed. He didn't expect countless little bugs. They went into the palm of his hand. He quickly pulled they out with tweezers. But here's the thing. Bodies that have long since been dismembered. They all stood up. They surrounded him. As the body's throat moves, after the chubby shouted. He also took the box lunch. Eve asked if Jim had a car out just now, but he lied. And our only lead is gone. He doesn't know how to follow this up. Gus pulled the coffin to the designated location, but no one came to help him. He was curious to see what was in the coffin, but suddenly the coffin shook itself. Look at this scary scene. He can only run out of panic. And the little girl's father, he was at home alone, thinking of my daughter, but suddenly there was a little hand at the door. He looked up, a daughter who would have died. She was right in front of him. He looked at his daughter strangely. He did not think much about her. He took his daughter directly into his arms, but the little girl's eyes suddenly blinked.